Mum brought me, just deadpan. I hate the idea of being here. This is not anything I wanted. Flash forward 4 years, she loves it. She is here on a weekly basis. She is smiling. She is engaging. The way that we have been able to tailor both the exercise but also the language around the exercise so that it gives her more and more autonomy.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Healthy Business Lab podcast, where we interview awesome allied health business owners to share knowledge, learnings, insights for others in the same space. And today I'm super excited to have with us today Sara Woodroffe from Simply Stronger. So welcome to the podcast, Sara.
Hi, Craig. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you on again. We've had a little chat before recording this, and I'm excited around your background and what you've managed to do in your business and the like. And so I'd love for you to fill in a little bit more to share with the audience. What is your business and what is your background there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an exercise physiologist for nearly about 20 years now. And back in 2016, I started Simply Stronger Exercise Physiology here in Melbourne. So we are in Caulfield and have been in and around this area, Melbourne East, Glen Iris, those kinds of areas when we first started out in just me in with some personal trainers in a local gym. And then about 4 years ago, we moved into our own space here at Caulfield North and, have our own gym space and another little private studio, and it's brilliant.
Yeah. And how many EPs have you got working with you at the moment?
We've got 3 full-time. So I myself don't work in the business anymore. I promoted myself to full-time business owner, manager, and all other hats. We've got 3 full-time staff. I'm working as EPs, all EPs.
Yeah, love that. And thank you for sharing that background. And we'll jump into all those business owner hats in a moment as well. But again, I love to touch upon delving into the expertise, background. Again, your background, personal training, exercise physiology. You've done a bunch of different things in the space as well. And now you're a full-time business owner. Often we find business owners don't look after themselves. Given some of your experience of being the business owner, but then also the expertise in doing and helping people with things where they can look after themselves, which probably helps them do what they do in their business better. I'd love for you to give some insights on things that you've found work well with that expertise to take it into and being conscious of it as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly in the many years that I was both a business owner and an EP in the business, that was at times really straining. You're being pulled in both directions, you're switching hats constantly. But from the time that I had left uni, we were told there were no jobs, you need to create your job in the EP world. So until I ran Simply Stronger in 2016, I always worked multiple jobs. So it was not a new thing to kind of switch and change between the two. And for a long time, I actually found that quite refreshing because you're using your brain in different ways. As I got further into the business ownership and particularly in bringing on employees, that's when it started to get a little bit harder. So it was important for me to start to figure out how to balance that. And it started with things like making sure I had a specific day or a specific time that was my admin time. I was locking that in rather than switching and changing throughout the day. But in the last couple of years, that got tougher and tougher. I was only seeing about 10 hours worth of clients, but I felt that my brain was in the business space and just wasn't able, it wasn't 100% with my client. And with the level of experience that you got, that's okay. You can still perform to a reasonable level. I felt it wasn't fair, but that's not the opinion that my clients would give, particularly when I told them that I wasn't going to see them anymore. And they're like, oh, no, that's not. But some of the things that I do, we are really lucky that we're opposite Caulfield Park. I live 2.5 kilometres away and I walk to and from work. And that for me is a great way that I can switch between home life and work life. I'm diligent at getting the vast majority of my work done at work. I may still do stuff on weekends. I am a small business owner, but when I go home at night, I don't do that stuff anymore. Where when I was seeing clients, absolutely, I'd walk in the door, my partner would be cooking dinner for me, and so I just need 20 minutes. I just have to go and finish this thing. And it was a nightmare. When I managed to bridge that gap and recognize that the list is still there tomorrow.
Let's wait for that tomorrow. Love it. I love to just drill down even that the simple act of separation between work and play, so to speak, and having that break, and the aspect of the moving your body part of it. Obviously, all of what you do at the core of is getting people moving and making sure they're moving well. As a business owner, how important is that to be mindful of and to make sure they're doing things like that in their day?
Yeah, absolutely. And the same for our staff. Again, being near Caulfield Park is really wonderful. In our industry, it's quite common that you'll work split shifts, right? So you might be arriving in winter in the dark and leaving in the dark and not seeing so much daylight. Or if you are, it's because you're going out on home visits or things. So getting out and just doing a couple of laps around the park and just moving, seeing the green spaces, getting light in your eyes, all of that stuff. And because I do it, my staff feel really comfortable going out and doing it as well. Whereas if I just locked myself in my little office the entire time, there's that expectation that everyone needs to work as hard, whereas we have conversations every day about making sure that they keep balance in their lives as well.
Nice. I love that. And outside of, I guess, just doing general moving, and again, I want to bring some of the expertise in here of people being conscious of their bodies and what you do and what you recommend to clients, that if you have a business owner who is your client in there, what would you be telling them about being very conscious of with the body? And as I've even done this, I've got myself a little bit more upright in my chair and different things like that I'm sitting there conscious of. See my osteo the other day and I was like, oh yeah, no, back needs to tilt, the pelvis needs to tilt and things like that. Any little tips that you've got, even in being mindful of, even quick little wins that people can think of while they're working, whether they're somebody that does do a bit of the office time or even actually working with clients and they are up and about moving, being conscious of?
Yeah, absolutely. For what we're often saying to our clients, particularly when they're working from home, it became such a big thing that we all work from home. And so there wasn't as much getting up and moving around the office and talking to other people and having actual conversation. For some of our clients, they set timers. I've got a client years ago who they had a little orange sticker on their watch. And it reminded them that when they looked at their watch, they needed to get up and move around, or for others, it might be doing pelvic floor exercises or whatever homework they've been given. But you have those little reminders. I had one client who used to have a gong on his phone that reminded him to just be mindful. It would go off at whatever intervals. And again, he was a business owner as well. So that would go off in meetings. And he was like, no, it's time for mindfulness. Everyone stop. And they would all do it because he was the boss.
Cool.
But yeah, it's finding the ways that work for you. And that's one of the things that as exercise physiologists, that's our role. Like obviously it's about exercise prescription, but in particular, it's helping people to build that positive relationship with exercise and movement. For a lot of people, when movement hasn't felt like a positive thing, or it always feels there's guilt associated with it because, well, we all should be moving, shouldn't we? Everyone tells us every day that we should be doing these things, but getting comfortable with, all right, I'm going to walk from here out to the kitchen, and while I'm at the kettle, I'm going to do a few little calf raises. I'm going to do this little exercise, whatever it is, and feeling good about that it's movement, and acknowledge how your body feels when we move, because we're built to do that.
Yeah, I love that. A couple of little points there, that idea of habit stacking. Hey, we've got the habit of going to get a cup of tea or whatever. What can we build onto that? That's a great idea. And it's even, again, those different other little triggers. What are the triggers that can make us just be conscious? I love that idea of the watch or the gong. Two little things that might resonate with people, or finding your own version of that to be mindful of. Again, whatever the thing is going to have the nice little bang for buck that you might have. Thank you for sharing those. And yeah, got my brain ticking over. I've used the Pomodoro technique in the past as far as the gong one. I like the idea of throwing that into the mix. So thank you. Thank you for that. But now I'd love to move tact. And again, touching on those business hats that you referred to earlier, and we're all about business experiments. And again, you've 8 odd years in business and plenty of learnings, plenty of evolution. You've already touched upon some of those here. What experiments have you done in your business, and sort of what are the learnings that you've found from those?
Yeah, so many, Craig. To give a bit of context, when I first started out as a business owner, it was literally, I feel like I can do this myself. I'm going to give it a go. And then we're a bit busy. I should employ someone. So the first probably 7 years of the business, it was really reactionary, which meant that if someone proposed opportunity for me, I gave it a go, which can be great, but it can also end up in areas that just don't quite fit. So at one point, I was given the opportunity to go out to a medical practice and run a clinic within that medical practice. And it felt like it would be a good idea. I was just doing it for half a day a week. I still had 4.5 days actually where I normally worked out of the gym, and it didn't work. It just that what they wanted and what I could provide did not align. And years later, reflecting on it, our values just didn't align. But I didn't know that at the time, and I probably couldn't have articulated what our values were at the time either. But you learn from those experiences, so that's okay.
Maybe I'd jump in on that in as much as the opportunity arose, you jumped in and you gave it a go, and then you did the reflections and learnings. What were the reflections on what do you do differently now in that sort of same scenario? What's the steps that you work through to go, is it an opportunity that we do actually take on board?
For starters, I think before I jump, which I think is a good idea.
What is that thinking then? What is thinking for an opportunity like that? What does that involve for you?
I can think out the logistics of the situation. It's very easy, particularly when you're a sole trader, but even as a small business owner, that you don't value your own time. So for me, it was, well, I can just go try this thing. And if it doesn't work out, what have I lost? Just my time. And that wasn't a cost to me. And shifting that mindset to think about, that my time is valuable. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing something else. So what else has to give? If we want to try something different, or because we've tried lots of different ways of marketing the business and things like that. And it's that, what is it going to cost me? Is it something we can afford, both from a financial perspective, but a time perspective as well? At one point, we had a recommendation of someone who would run all our social media and emails. Seemed like a great idea at the time, but what it turned out to be was that I still had to create everything, and they just did some tweaking and posting. It really wasn't good value, because for me, I needed to shift that out of my head and just hand it off. And we weren't at a point where we could afford the kind of company that would do all of that.
100%. I think a couple of things I just noted down here, which is what I love, again, that idea of either dollars or time. There is that trade-off, and that the opportunity cost that you touched upon, super key. And the fact that you've got that awareness of it, and it actually sounds like it is now ingrained into that thinking for any of these types of experiments that you're doing. What's the opportunity cost at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And then it gets factored into that decision-making process. That's great.
And a lot of that, Craig, comes from conversations with other business owners. It's one of the things that once I stopped seeing clients and was full-time business owner, I tried really hard to get out there and meet with a bunch of other business owners. And one of them that I spoke to just talked openly about how what she defines as a really big part of her skill set is her ability to say no. And I said, okay, yeah, it's good to be able to say no. But the conversation evolved, and she was really clear on their direction. And if something didn't fit, it was a no. Right? But she knew how to consider the different elements. And I think that's both listening to these other people and hearing we've all had our journeys. We've got so much information to share. A bunch of the things that we managed to initiate in Simply Stronger last year were all because I'd had the time to actually talk to other business owners and hear their perspectives on how that worked.
Yeah. I love that. And exactly why we're having these chats with business owners like yourself right now is to get more of those sort of stories and messages out. I guess thinking of the network and income, the social media side, when you very first started to put yourself out there more on the networking side of things and the like, did you put any sort of timelines, frameworks around, hey, I'm going to do this for a certain amount of time, see what it is, and then assess it? So is an approach you take with this, or it is a feel it as you go kind of, hey, I'm going to do this, I'll leave it a bit open-ended, and then I can pivot or change? Or how do you approach that?
Yeah, it was much more open-ended. It was, again, more about opportunities that arose at the time. I'd started with networking with a bunch of more local EPs, and where that started from was for two reasons. One, I wanted to see other practices. I wanted to see, like, I like how ours is set up, but if I can see how other people do things and why they think that's a good idea, you can see what elements might be a good fit for you. But then the other purpose behind it was I wanted to build a network for professional development, that we have a group of people that come together and we all quarterly do some networking and some professional development as team, which I can go to in another chat. That could be a whole episode on itself because it's a big thing. When you can have those conversations face to face with people, it has so much more meaning. And that's how everyone came on board with this idea. And that was great. And then I found myself returning from a holiday with a few days in Brisbane. So I had a couple of people that I'd met at conferences or had done a course of theirs. And so, oh, can I come down to your clinic and see how you... And so it was just those invitations. But at one point last year, I went to New South Wales and I literally just emailed people or sent them messages on LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever felt appropriate, and said, I listened to your podcast or have seen you on social media and I'd just love to come and visit your clinic. And most of the time the response was either, of course, come on down, or so what? How can I help? Like, clearly you're looking for help. Like, no, just connection. Looking for connection. And from that, I've ended up having conversations that have really helped. But in particular, in Melbourne during COVID, we became so disconnected. This just felt natural to go out and connect with other business owners. My network of people initially were all EPs, and they were all people who had come through at the same time as me. We all believe the same things, act in the same way to a certain degree. I wanted to stretch that boundary and broaden the way that I think. And the only way you can do that is by meeting with new people. And part of that is how you and I met. I was in Perth and I met with Jordan, and she mentioned me to you, and here we are.
Yeah, exactly right. Again, I think power of networks is phenomenal. And again, that ripple effect of starting conversation with an intention. Again, I guess when I come to the idea of experimenting this podcast, you can experiment 100% to start conversations, see where it can lead, what learnings, what knowledge, what insights, what impact can that actually have as a bit of a ripple effect. It's a classic example of when we started talking as to what that can do alike. And I guess you talked a lot about the EP side of things. As far as some of the networking, how much cross-modality networking are you starting to do? How have you found that?
I've always done a bit of that because it's really useful from a cross-referral standpoint. If you can get to know my therapist down the road, then you know which clients are actually going to be a good fit for them, or the physio or the podiatrist or anyone else. So the business owners that I meet with tend to be more local when it's that. But there's definitely enough businesses that are multi-practice now as well. So you get to meet with a bunch of different people who have lots of different employees under the one roof, which is fantastic. And we're seeing more and more of those that are EP-based that then bring in OTs or speech or physio. And knowing, because for us, we know who we are and we know how these businesses and other allied health can complement us, where it seems to be a little bit more confusing for the rest of the world. They know who they are, but they don't know how we can complement them. They think often it's that we all do exercise. So it's that you're all going to come in and not step on our toes, or...
Yeah, which part of the puzzle is that?
Yeah,
which can only happen by learning and understanding and awareness at the end of the day. So that's great. Or I guess moving forward on that idea of what you do, the outcomes that you get for clients from the EP side of things, I'd love for you to share sort of an example of yourself or your team, sort of case that stands out in your mind of where people have come to you and then you've been able to basically what they're able to do off the back of however long they've worked with you for.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of clients that spring to mind straight away. The first one is an NDIS client. When she first came to us, she worked with one of my colleagues. I worked with her for a little while as well, but initially she was with one of my colleagues. And when she first sat down in that initial assessment, often a question is, so what brings you here? Mum brought me. Just deadpan, nothing. I don't want to be here. I hate the idea of being here. This is not anything I want to do. Flash forward 4 years, she loves it. She is here on a weekly basis. She is smiling. She is engaging. The way that we have been able to tailor both the exercise, but also the language around the exercise that gives her more and more autonomy. Now, it's not that we're standing there saying, what would you like to do today? It's something like, okay, so last week we did this rowing exercise and you did this many repetitions on this weight. And I'm thinking that we could possibly do a little bit heavier, but it's up to you. If we did do it heavier, we could do less repetitions. How do you feel about that? But if you feel like we're ready for sticking with the same weight today, then that's cool too. And because of the way that you framed it, straight away she's like, no, I want to challenge myself. Can I have the heavier weight, please? And she's making these decisions. And that use of language for someone who didn't exercise beyond walking to the bus stop, it is, she loves exercise. She goes to a gym several days a week. She thinks about what she eats because she's more aware of her body. There's just been this whole flow-on effect for her that is groundbreaking. Like, it's absolutely a massive game changer for her.
I love asking those questions because I like getting goosebumps and stuff like that. Even that idea of being able to get somebody to consistently do something and be happy about it, regardless of all the other things that you've highlighted, like that's massive in itself. But then like I say, it's just the incremental build up and approach. And again, the power of language. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the second client that I thought of as well. The power of language was massive. He had a lot of issues in his lumbar spine, so some discs doing things he didn't want them to do. And I had him, there were 2 moments when we were working together that really stuck out and that helped him to shift from being in pain constantly to being very, very capable. So the first was when he got pain watching me move, and we had talked about pain science and how it was triggered by different things that's there to help you to protect yourself, but your dial's turned up. It is telling you that you're in pain to warn you of something, regardless of whether there's damage going on. And he saw me move. He felt pain, and he started to recognize that his body was just warning him. Pain wasn't always a signal of damage for him.
Interesting. Got my brain ticking over it. About that idea now. That's a
yeah. There was nothing wrong. He was standing still. He had no reason to be in pain. There was no pain before I moved, but there was pain after I moved. The second moment that really hit home for him, he was lying on the reformer just doing some footwork, so just fully supported, feeling good. We've done this 100 times before. He's comfortable, but we were talking about his pain for something had come up. And I said to him, okay, let's draw me a word picture of what your back looks like to you, what your spine looks like. And he thinks for a moment and he says, I can only picture the broken bit. Okay, all right. He said, they showed me the MRI, they showed me where it's all stuffed, and that's all I can picture. Okay, great. That's your lumbar spine, right? When you move your head, no pain, okay? Yeah, that's right. You play golf. You love golf. Golf makes your back feel better, doesn't it? That's a lot of rotation through your thoracic spine. Oh, yep. And the cogs just kept ticking over to know that he wasn't broken. But until I asked that question, in his head, it was the broken bit in his back.
The power of the brain to be able to control anything around the body, whether it's pain, whether it's emotions, feelings, all those things. Again, the power of, if we can settle the brain and help it or be aware. I know it's what we do in our businesses. We talk about financial brain care. At the end of the day, if we can just lower the brain's stress levels or ways of thinking around it, then actually you can free yourself up. There's an example of that right there. That's cool. Thank you for sharing those. They've got me ticking over. You see, I'm lost for words. I'm not usually lost for words. That's the example of it, and seeing how animated you are, how excited you are. For those watching the video, come check out the YouTube version of this where you can see, again, the excitement of seeing these transformations in people. It's usually the light bulb moments, and that's what we're all about here. And while we've shared many of the learnings that Sara's been able to share with us today, thank you for those, is how can we all get light bulb moments for our clients, for ourselves as business owners, and basically have great sustainable practices where we can do more of this at the end of the day, create more of these transformations and get these outcomes. Again, really appreciate you sharing what you've shared here today, Sara. And what I would love to round off here as well is I know you love to network, connect with people, and where's the best way for people to find you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, just searching my name. On Instagram, it is Sara Woodroffe. There's some underscores and an EP. I'm sure Craig will put it in the show notes for you. Yeah, so you can definitely reach out in both of those ways, or you could email me, sarah@simplystronger.com.au, and I will definitely reply. Yep.
We're going to put all this in the show notes, and we won't get bogged down on the .coms and all the rest of it, but yeah, awesome. Working on the beach, working on networks. Again, as Sara's mentioned, we will put all the links in the show notes so that you can stay connected and follow what Sara's doing, and do the same for us here. Hit a like. There we go. There's my muddled words going. Hit the likes, hit the subscribe buttons, and this is all the unscripted stuff that I have at the end. Once again, thank you. And again, we will actually, and Sara alluded to it before, we've had a chat as well. We'll probably dive deeper on the networking side of things as well in a future episode. So keep an eye out for that one that will probably be happening in the future as well. Thank you for your time today, Sara. And as always, build sustainable businesses that just have these impacts on life. And I'm struggling with my words there because I'm super excited and really look forward to you continue to follow these episodes in the future. Talk soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Business Lab podcast. Make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest episodes.